Welcome to Center Stage. My name is Mark Gordon. BLINDSIGHT follows 6 Tibetan teenagers who set out to climb one of the highest peaks on Earth. While that might be a challenge in itself, these children are blind. Stay tuned as we talk about this incredible journey with filmmaker Lucy Walker. Now, how did you find this story? What a piece of gold that you found here.
I know. As you see in the movie, the idea for the project was really born with an exchange between our two main characters, Erik Weihenmayer, an amazing blind American man who summits Everest, and Sabriye Tenberken, an amazing blind German woman who invents Tibetan Braille, and against all advice and discouragement goes to Tibet to take her Tibetan Braille system and opens the first school for the blind in Tibet. And everyone said there was no blind people in Tibet. That's why there were no facilities for them. And she rode around Tibet on horseback and proved them wrong, found the blind people. Actually, there's more blind people per capita in Tibet than anywhere else in the world. And when Erik scaled Everest, the first blind man to do so, and just to put that achievement in perspective, 2 other blind men have tried to climb Everest, and one died trying, and one fell in a crevasse and is never climbing again. So this incredible achievement. Now, Everest is half in Tibet. The north face of Everest is in Tibet, and the Tibetans call it Mother Goddess of the Universe. And Tibetans have a very low opinion, unfortunately, of blind people. It's a poor, mostly rural community. And there's a belief that, especially in the kind of pop superstitious villages, not the official view, but there's more of a kind of pop superstition in the Buddhist tradition that you're punished for something bad in a previous life if you're blind, and in the Bon tradition in Tibet that you're cursed by evil spirits or possessed by demons if you're blind. And so there's an awful lot of horrible prejudice and ostracization, no facilities whatsoever. It's really a very miserable existence. And when a blind guy climbed Everest, that really shook them up. I mean, they couldn't quite believe a blind person who isn't allowed to do anything could do that. And of course, this chimed perfectly with the project that Sabriye was trying to instill in her blind students. You can do anything you put your mind to. Blindness is not it's not necessarily a disability, it's more of a character trait. Sabriye says, I'm blonde, I'm blind, there are other opportunities. And she wrote him the most beautiful email and described the effect of the news that he climbed Everest on her students in their hard lives, and what a joy it was and what a hero he was to them. And he was so moved by this email, he said, boy, I climbed Everest, I suddenly felt like a coward, and whatever this woman wanted me to do, I'd do it. I just wanted to help support her. And he had this beautiful idea as well. Look, he climbed Everest, but he's a privileged Westerner. Wouldn't it be an amazing idea to extend his work by climbing a mountain with 6 blind teenagers from the developing world, and maybe the message that his work was sending out would ripple through the developing world, and not just in the United States where he was best known. And so between them they cooked up this idea, and I was the lucky person that got to direct the movie. They said, does this sound like a movie? And I said yes. I was recommended to them because I had previously directed another documentary called Devil's Playground, which was in its own way very challenging, and it was very tricky access, and getting inside the Amish community and getting to know the young people there, and also getting involved with, again, teenagers who I love to work with. So the project kind of found me.
It's beautiful to see these children and how you do follow some of the stories. The one child that he had all these burns on his back, and they looked like cigarette burns, and he was a street kid. And you have the just story upon story upon story how these kids are kind of shunned by their community, they're outcasts, and by doing this act of going up the mountain, the response, how their lives have just kind of changed.
Well, there's one young man, Tashi. He's actually
that's the one with
21 now.
he's the one with the cigarettes and
Yeah, his name translates as lucky, but when you get to know his story, you can't think of anything less lucky than his childhood. He went blind at the age of 2, actually in Sichuan province in adjacent to Tibet in western China, and his family was dirt poor. And at one stage they needed money for a new house when he was 7 years old, so they sold him to a couple who wanted to take him off and beg, and they gave his dad some money, and his dad wanted to get rid of him, and they took him all the way to Lhasa in Tibet, where he didn't even speak the language, and so far away from home that he could never get back. And they beat him up so badly. It's like a Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist or something. You know, they made him beg. They took his money. He was their business. And they beat him so badly that finally he ran away and chose to live rough on the streets, freezing cold Lhasa at night, not speaking the language, not being able to see a thing. He didn't even have pockets, so that when he did manage to beg some money, he'd get mugged and it would be robbed. And finally he was taken. When the blind school opened, a kind passerby took him to the blind school. And slowly, he found his feet and got educated. And when we met him during the film, he wanted to go home to get his identity papers so that he could open up a massage clinic. He's learned to do medical massage at the school.
Was it pretty dangerous? I mean, were there times when you, it seemed like some real...
Oh, yeah.
Things are going to happen. Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. It's called death fall drop-offs. I mean, you know, you put a foot wrong.
The crevasses?
Yeah.
Now, was that when you're climbing over the ladders? That is what's sketchy. Because you go down that crevasse, and it's not like, hey, hello, can you, drop me a line? You'll fall like into the center of the earth, right?
They're pretty deep, yeah. We have a wonderful point of view shot.
The overhead shot?
Yeah, we open the movie with a little bit of a visual gag because you can hear what's going on. You can hear the voice of somebody who's nervous and moving, and you don't know what they're seeing. And then
that's cool because you put us as if we were blind going up the mountain. Yeah. I like that.
And then you reveal the view down into the crevasse, climbing over the ladder, and then you think, boy, you know, on some level you think, well, maybe it'd be better not to be blind so you don't have to look down there. If you're scared of heights, maybe if you can't see what you're up against. But no, it was scary. I mean, there's a wonderful line that Erik has in the movie at one point when he says, it's not dangerous, it's potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, well, what's the difference between dangerous and potentially dangerous? But we're climbing up there, and you're terrified. And you're terrified as a filmmaker that people are going to do something extra dangerous for camera, because the camera obviously does have an effect on things. And you're terrified because I didn't realize until we hadn't been up there before. Right? We didn't realize, just as Sabriye and the blind Tibetan teenagers didn't realize quite how tough the climb was going to be until we're there doing it. And I'm there. With the film team, the camera has this uncanny ability to observe the gap between the theory and practice, shall we say, on the mountain. I did find that a lot of times with mountaineers, there's fantastic lip service paid to safety. But when it comes right down to it, they want to climb mountains. And of course it's going to be dangerous. Of course the drop-offs are going to be steep, indeed death falls. I was very curious about this with the mountaineers, and I said, well, why do you do it? Because, they'll talk about their friends, and if all the mountaineers, when we're hanging out in the memorial area at Everest Base Camp, where you see these harrowing memorials, and they say, oh yeah, that's my friend, that's my friend, that's my friend. And exactly, avalanches, freak boulders, freak falls, freak equipment failures. Some of them will have this interesting answer and say, well, because when I get home, I appreciate a cup of tea, I appreciate my wife, I appreciate my home, I appreciate being alive another day. And I thought, gosh, it's interesting, isn't it, that you need that, you need that danger and deprivation and discomfort and terror to kind of appreciate the everyday. And I sometimes compare that, for example, with the Tibetan, who have these fantastic meditations in the Buddhist tradition that to remind you how precious life is. If you meditate on death enough, you kind of appreciate each day. And they have, and that kind of system, maybe that's why they don't need to climb the mountains, because they have this religion that encourages the contemplation of the preciousness of life, and you don't need to go take these crazy risks to do it.
Just a reminder, you can listen to Center Stage live every Tuesday night on KXLU Los Angeles, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're also streaming on the internet at kxlu.com. Until next time, this is Mark Gordon, and I'll see you center stage.